Yeah, my name is Dave. I'm developer advocate at zeroheight. That's all my contact information if you want to find me on the internet somewhere. But more importantly, this is my dad.
David Dons! David Dons!
Where's
David Dons! David Dons! David Dons! Good morning to you. David Dons!
Sorry, it gets a little bit creepy at the end there, but for some reason, my dad answers the phone in this way to me every single time, whether that be a phone call to me, phone call to him, or an audio message on WhatsApp. And being the age he is, every single message from him is an audio message. So they all start with that. What I thought was, if life gives you lemons, or if somebody gives you a very loud dad, why not exploit them for marketing purposes? So I thought it would be a really good idea to utilize this sound as like a kind of almost an accessibility trick to like show people or explain to people how to pronounce my name on my website. So this is my website, darn.es. Do a lot of blogging and like web components articles and stuff like that. And this button at the top, when you press it, it's my dad pronouncing my name. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how I made this using web components. First thing we need to do, we need to put some audio on the internet. So let's look at a bit of code that would do that. How big is that? Oof. Can you see that at the back? Okay. No. How about, oh, I can't zoom. Can we zoom? Ooh. Yeah. Okay, so that's an audio element on the internet. HTML, audio, source, link to the file, and if I zoom back out again, ooh, and I press the button.
David Dons!
Whoa, that's even louder. Whoa. Whew. Almost like a cup of coffee, isn't it? Like a cortado or something. So yeah, just that. Well, cool. Okay, that works, but you know, it doesn't look nice. It doesn't look like a nice kind of satisfying button that you can click and hover and kind of. You can't get to style it really. And I mean, I'm in Safari right now, so I could like uncomment this code and like try and style it. Like, it's just. You can't really like style it how you want to, and for good reason. It's got to be accessible and like have a practical piece of UI. But like, what if you want to like extend and be a bit more custom with that? So really, what I want is, pan over and switch to this. I want that. I want a nice button and a nice icon in it, and I want to do it semantically. So if we zoom in here, can I zoom again? I got to focus on the browser window. I want to use a button element. And I want to use an SVG. That's linking to an external SVG sprite. I've just kind of hidden it away. And then accessible piece of text, so then it explains what that button does. And, you know, nice, simple like markup. We want that, and then when you click on it, it plays the audio. But how will we do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Audience. Enter web components. Yeah, so what are web components? So web components are a set of tools that are part of like the browser, like API, JavaScript API. And it comprises of custom elements, HTML templates, shadow DOM, and a set of like dedicated CSS selectors. You can style it and kind of customize it and utilize it. I won't go into all of these. Like, I'm probably going to try and keep like somewhat surface level with custom elements and the CSS selectors. But conveniently, I have a white paper on the zeroheight website. It's called The Case for Web Components. Yeah, it's called The Case for Web Components. It's a guide on like what web components are, what they can do for you, how they work in a design system, how well they work in a design system. Really good for that. And a bunch of resources that I highly recommend you check out. So, yep, if you use the QR code or the link at the bottom, and I'll make sure to share the links afterwards. So, yeah. So let's move on. Right, I'm going to get into it and show like a web component. So here we are. We have the button element, the audio element, and I've wrapped it in a new element, or a custom element, called play-button. Now, that's one of the important things about web components is that it must have a dash in the tag name, and that is to emit it away from the rest of the HTML spec. So HTML, it must be like all one word, no dashes, whereas web components has to have a dash in it to kind of differentiate the two. So that's what our web component is going to be. It's called play button, and it's going to turn that button into a button that can control the audio. So what I'm going to do is, and yes, I have been live coding. It's a bit wild on stage, but here we go. I'm going to uncomment this script tag, and this script tag links to a web component that I've made, and you can use it yourselves. It's on NPM. You can install it or hotlink it if you're wild like me. And what's going to happen is, now that we've done that, we can click on this button.
David Dons!
Cool. So we got it. And the great thing about web components is that you can progressively enhance them. So what we've got here is we've got both elements, but really we want to hide the audio element when that button operates correctly. So what we can do is, with those CSS selectors that I mentioned, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong tab. We can use these CSS selectors to hide the audio element when that button component is operational. So when that button component is defined, you'll see that there, it will hide or display none the audio element. But if that web component is not defined, we've got like a not selector here, it will hide the button instead. So now that I've turned on that code, we can see that the audio element is now hidden. And so if I was to switch over to the HTML again and kind of, I don't know, we'll purposefully break it by just like removing it. So it will just fall back to an audio element, which is great because it just does what it needs to do. We know that works, doesn't require JavaScript or anything. But when the JavaScript is available, it will instantiate the web component, and then we'll get our nice bit of UI that we want. Great, cool. But wouldn't it be cool if the icon like shook a little bit, like when the audio played, like just a little feedback to say that that audio is playing? Now, you can do it in CSS, but the CSS spec is unfinished. It is available in Safari and Safari only, which is really annoying. Sorry, backtrack. This is the playing pseudo selector in CSS. So you can target elements when, or target an audio element when it is playing, or a video element actually. So you can select it, so whenever it's playing, you can kind of style it appropriately or style it differently when it's playing. And the problem is, that's not available in all browsers. But the good thing about web components is that you can polyfill for those things as well. So, another piece of code. What we've got is, we've got that play button again, and hopefully I'm zooming in enough there, but shout out if you can't see that. We've got the play button as we had before, and the button element, and the audio element down here, all normal like HTML, just wrapped in one web component up here, or one custom element, I should say. And then we've got a new one called isPlaying. So what it's going to do is it's going to polyfill for that pseudo selector. So it will change its state when the audio is playing, any audio inside of that web component. So I'll quickly switch over to the CSS. And what we've got here is a state selector, which is a cool thing that's inside of web components. And this behaves very similarly to like hover, focus, active, all of those pseudo selector like states for an element. So you can kind of invent your own ones. But what you do is you do :state and then the name of the state that you've created inside of that web component. So in this case, this state is playing, and then what I'm going to do is target this SVG and apply this frankly crazy animation on it. Thanks, CSS Shake. Real handy. So if we switch back here, and what I'm going to do is turn on this web component. Well, I guess what I'll do is I'll play the audio. I apologize. It's
David Dons.
So you'll see it's not like it's not moving or anything. You can kind of do it like he's like in like Ace Ventura, like when the doors are closing. So right, let's turn on this web component. So now we've added that into the page. That web component is instantiated on the page, and hopefully, oh sorry, this is confusing. I've got lots of code running at the same time. Double demo. All right, let's do it here. So now I've uncommented this, and when you click on it,
David Dons.
You might not be able to quite see it, but it was like shaking. I'm really worried about playing the audio over and over and over again, because then you become like a part of my trauma experience. So cool. We've got like a nice button. We've got nice like animation. But it would be nice if the audio changed each time you played it. So it played like a different bit of audio each time. So in HTML, there isn't really anything that can create random without like getting JavaScript involved. But inside of the audio element, or what you can put inside the audio element, is the source element. So the source element, you can drop into the audio element and define a bunch of different sources. Normally, it's used for cross-browser compatibility and like kind of different operating systems and stuff. So you can put WAV and MPEG and M4A and all those kinds of things. And you list them all out there, and it kind of allows it to be cross-compatible. I guess it's less important these days with how browsers and operating systems work so well. But I thought it'd be a good idea to kind of exploit this a little bit and use the source element to define a bunch of random audio sources to cycle through. Each time the button's clicked, you would replace the source with a new like audio. So let's do that. So again, we've got, I'm going to zoom in on this one. We've got our is playing. We've got is playing, the web component. We've got a play button web component. And then we've got our regular HTML again, just all standard stuff, and the audio. But this time, we've got a bunch of other audio files in here. And what we can do is, again, uncomment this code. And now, well, bear with, the first one will play my dad.
David Dons.
And then if we click it again,
David Dons.
and play it again.
David Dons.
I'm wondering if people know who these are. I'm guessing everybody knows who Untitled Goose is. But yeah, you keep playing it.
David Dons. David
see.
Dons.
All right, one more.
David
No,
Dance.
that's Phil again. So yeah, now we've kind of created a extra bit of like user experience to this component. Like we've made it play audio, this button, play audio. We made it like animate in different states. We've added like randomization as well, all with like separate web components, all these little bits that can be put together to create like a user experience. But I should pause for a moment and explain, how does this all work? Like, how do web components like even do this kind of stuff? So we're actually going to make a web component together. So there's this nice animation from Michelle Barker, and it utilizes the variable fonts, actually, that was mentioned before, to animate these letters like individually. So it creates this kind of flowing, like breathing animation. And I really liked it, and I wanted to use it to kind of make my name like ripple as the words, or my name is like spoken out. So it kind of ripples across from start to finish. But what I would ideally like it to do is to animate in time with the audio. And because that audio changes on each randomization, I'm not going to be able to make the audio match, the animation match to the audio. So what if we could create a web component that can pluck out the audio duration and apply it as a value we can use in CSS? So it's time to learn tech. How big's that? It's not bad, it's not bad. So for the purposes of this example, I'm going to keep it more like simplified. I'm going to get rid of the button and the other elements that we had there. And all we're going to play with is the audio element itself. We're going to make use of the isPlaying web component that I used before to like kind of understand when that thing is playing and when it ends. So then we can use that in conjunction with the duration to create an animation that begins when the audio begins and ends when the audio ends. So if we switch over to here in our JavaScript, we can go through the parts of a web component. So the first thing we're going to do is instantiate it, or define it as it said in CSS. So I'm going to define this web component, and it's going to be called duration property. I suppose I should mention that I had a duration property tag here. That's going to be the web component markup that'll instantiate it. So I've instantiated it. I'll close it off here, and then register it to the page. Cool. So that border is a bit of CSS to just say, like, that web component is defined on the page. It's there. It's ready to go. The next thing we want to do is we want to get the audio. We want to get the element so then we can get the values from it. So there's a get here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. So this is a get, and that's going to get the player. So I'm being ambiguous here on purpose. So this web component can be used for audio or video. So we can grab the audio element or the video element that is within this web component or within the tag, like within the markup, and pluck it out so then we can start getting the information from it. The other thing we want to do is we want to have the ability to set the duration on the web component. So then it knows how long the audio is. So this is a method here that's going to actually set, or a setter, to set the duration as a CSS custom property. CSS custom property, CSS variables, a lot of people call them, just a variable that we can pluck out and use in our CSS. So we'll mark it, and we'll get the audio as milliseconds and apply it to this, or apply it using this method. So next step would be to actually apply it using a connected callback. So connected callback essentially kind of responds back to say, we're ready to go. Let's like do stuff. Let's do stuff on the page. Let's do stuff with this web component. And by applying that, we can see here we've got the milliseconds, like all of it. 3.6 is blah, 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 blah. But it's as an integer. It's there. We've got it. Now we can utilize it. And I've also added here as well a duration change event listener. So it's going to listen out for any time the audio duration changes. So that randomization, when it goes through the different audio and stuff, it will know when that happens and update that duration. So then we'll stay in sync every time the audio changes at the end of the next play. So now what we can do is I will reveal that I have some pre-made CSS in here that is going to animate like beneath the audio to show the duration of it. So it should start when the audio starts and finish when the audio finishes.
David Dawns!
Perfect, okay. I understand that this is weird to kind of see it out of context, but I think the power of web components is being able to isolate the actual problem you have and create something very precise and like utility-based that you can use in combination with other web components to create something that is, you know, some more than the sum of its parts. So cool, we made a web component. And now we can see all those web components being used together. So when I play, oops, that's the wrong one, this one.
David Dawns!
No more laughter. It's not funny anymore. Yeah. At 37, it's no longer funny. All right, let's play another one.
David Dawns!
I just want the honk.
David Dawns!
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. Cool. Okay. I've been showing you very like small web components, very like kind of niche and like single use and specific. But I want to like contextualize that within design systems and how they can be used at a like really like big scale. So prior to working at zeroheight, as Luke said, I worked on Nord design system, and Nord design system used web components throughout with the help of Lit, a JavaScript framework to help make web components. But all of the web components in Nord were built with web components. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of pieces. There was a lot of stuff going on. And, oh, sorry. These are these are all the components and all the variations of them. And every single one of them was built using pieces of web components or like a single web component, like date pickers and inputs and buttons and drop downs and popovers and all of that kind of stuff. But we found it to be really powerful because it's very flexible. It's very like low level. It's not tied to a specific JavaScript framework. And it works hand in hand with like design systems, I think. So this is one of the applications that we worked on at Nord Health. It's called Provet Cloud. It's a piece of software that veterinarians use across Europe, across the world actually. And they use it for everything. They use it for invoicing, they use it for booking, they use it for orders, everything. There's everything in there. And this was all built with web components. And I really like this slide. So this is just like a little video demo of the sidebar resizing. But what I want to make clear here is that the browser window on the left is a 10-year-old Django application, and the window on the right is a unreleased Nuxt application. So as you can imagine, those are quite varied stacks, but both of them use the identical web components that we had in our design system. And it meant that we could keep this UI completely in sync with each other. You know, the ideal in design systems to create something that's consistent and something that hopefully the user may not even notice the difference between the two. They see a unified experience. And that's what we were aiming for, because we were aiming to like replace each part of each view inside of the application with this new stack and do it while they didn't notice, basically. So web components was really powerful in this case because we could just maintain the same buttons, the same tables, the same cards using the same code base and propagate them into those two stacks. Another like tidbit as well is that the Django application, the implementation of those web components was measured in weeks, not months. The transformation of that from the old like markup was the speed at which we were able to operate, because it was, all intents and purposes, like standard HTML, made it very smooth and very like comfortable. So before I wrap up, I have got a link on the website to get in touch, and there might be a way to upload audio if you fancy doing an impression of my dad, if you want. Up to you. And I might put it on the website, so, you know, do with that what you will. And one other thing, zeroheight has a design systems survey that we're doing right now. We want to know how people are using and building for design systems. You can use that QR code there or the link there. It's on our website as well. We want to hear about that, and if you sign up as well. Yes, Dave, that is you in the background there. Yeah, if you sign up, you will get early access to that report and what we get back from that, because we really want to share it to the community. And with that, thank you.